Thank you, Jerry. David has been in Toastmasters for a few months and is enjoying learning to be a more effective speaker. He has a degree in math and computer science and has been involved in the software field for 30 years. This has led him to a strong interest in copyright and intellectual property laws, as well as privacy issues, which he will be discussing today. David Schwartz, what do abortion rights and internet browser cookies have in common? What do abortion rights and internet browser cookies have in common? David Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I have a handout here since I'm making something to inform. So you're probably wondering, what the heck do abortion rights and internet browser cookies have in common? First of all, how many of you haven't got a clue what internet browser cookies are? Or you might have a clue, but you really don't know.
Well, I have a clue, but...
Okay. They're actually good things. We're going to touch on an aspect that they're not so good, but I will get to them in a second. There's a couple myths I want to get into regarding our legal system here. One is that there is a constitutional right to privacy in the United States. There is no mention of the word privacy anywhere in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. And in fact, one of the most significant judicial issues in my mind of the last century, perhaps in all of American history, has been a case called Roe v. Wade. Now, everybody's probably heard of Roe v. Wade, right? And the myth is that Roe v. Wade was about abortion, right? Most people think it's all about abortion rights. But the bottom line for the Supreme Court was not that they said, okay, this woman has a right to get an abortion. The ruling was basically that the government has no right to intervene in a woman's right to choose her health care. It boiled down to a privacy issue. The irony is, if there was a constitutional right to privacy, Roe v. Wade never would have come to court. Right? Now, you might wonder, how do all these privacy issue rights get decided? I mean, clearly most people think, well, yeah, we have a right to privacy, and there are some issues, and what happens is, they end up coming before the Supreme Court, and every time there's a little, they draw this line. They draw this little line that says, more clearly defines the role of the government and the role of the people in terms of the government's right to poke its nose where it doesn't belong. Now, I've got a little list here of some cases that have come up that I think are real formative in establishing our privacy rights. One is Griswold v. Connecticut. In 1965, well, before that, Connecticut passed a law saying that women, that the distribution and sale of contraceptives is illegal. Well, the head of Planned Parenthood sued the state, and the Supreme Court got it and basically said the government has no right to dictate how a woman may choose to care for her health in that respect. They drew a very clear line in that respect. Now, another case was Stanley v. Georgia. It was ruled in '69. Whatever your feelings about pornography are, the Supreme Court said that if you want to enjoy the consumption of pornography in the privacy of your own home, the government has no right to stop you from that. Now later on, another ruling says it's okay to consume pornography, just if it's child porn, you're going to jail for 20 years. Okay, so they're constantly refining this line and saying what's okay and what's not okay, and in particular, what is the government's interest and what is our personal interest. Of course, Roe v. Wade came up in '72. Another critical one was Lawrence v. Texas, where in 2003, where a gay couple was charged with sodomy and found guilty. And again, the Supreme Court said that the government has no right to dictate what goes on between consenting adults in the privacy of their own home. Okay, so there's some other cases here, and these are just the ones that stand out most significantly. But the interesting thing is, we could read this in the Lawrence case. The judge said, these matters involving the most intimate and personal choices a person may make in a lifetime. Choice is central to personal dignity and autonomy, are central to the liberty protected by the 14th Amendment. At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. Now that was just one particular case, but it really hits the nail on the head in terms of the government's interest. Now, of course, anybody who's read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy thought the answer to that is 42. Maybe we need a 42nd Amendment. But if you look at all the cases here, that there's no privacy amendment. And you know what they've done is they've pulled out issues from the First Amendment, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. And there's even somewhere I've seen the Fifth Amendment and Eighth Amendment. So I mean, there's no one place where we go, but all these other cases, and interestingly enough, they're all highly controversial, highly polarized, and highly divisive. And in my mind, the most interesting thing about Roe v. Wade is that, unlike many other cases where the courts are ruling in terms of one party getting, the least amount of damage, in Roe v. Wade, whatever side of that equation you stand on, somebody's getting hurt. And it sure would be nice if there was an amendment that said we didn't have to deal with that kind of an issue. But unfortunately, this is what we got. Now, what's this got to do with browser cookies? Last week, the Federal Trade Commission, a government entity, issued a proposed rulemaking regarding protecting our rights. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever the government starts to talk about protecting citizens' rights, I get a little scared. There's these three types of browser cookies. Browser cookies are good things. They're used to help track what's going on on the server side, because like you're sitting here, you do something and you stop and think for 30 seconds, you go type something else. Well, 4 million other people have hit that server, and the server has no clue who you are. So they use cookies to track what you just said and what you did and so on and so forth. So generally cookies are good. But there's three types. There's first party, second party, and third party cookies. This particular proposal is addressing the use of third party cookies. The problem with third party cookies is they exist almost exclusively for the purpose of tracking your behavior online. They're used by ad agencies, they're used by companies and organizations to collect data that in and of itself is innocuous. They keep track of what sites you visited, what pages you saw, what you purchased, what you did online, and they're collected and aggregated and pooled with a ton of other data. And taken together, it can be used by companies like insurance companies and other marketing firms to draw conclusions, if you will, to draw inferences about your behavior, about your interests, about your desires. You saw the movie Minority Report, where you're walking down the street and you see ads that are targeted right at you because they're tracking, they know your online behavior. Now people spend more time online surfing the internet than with any other media. So it's scary. To me, it's really scary. And when the government starts to say, we're going to protect you, I get a little worried. So I wanted to share this information with you and call your attention to the fact there is no constitutional right to privacy. And I think people need to be aware when the government steps in and starts to say, we're going to protect you, what the issues are. You might not understand what internet browser cookies are, but this 80-some-odd page document actually goes into a lot of detail of the history and some of the consequences that are involved. So I'd invite you to avail yourself of the URL here and grab a copy of that PDF, go through it, skim through it, see if you can make sense of it, tell your friends, because this problem is not going away. It's only going to get a lot more worse. And people say, well, we should have a right to have some control over that. Well, you don't. Within 10 years, we're going to have a Supreme Court ruling about this. You're going to draw another line, and somebody's going to say, okay, but until then, it's kind of a free-for-all. Whoever gets that data can use it for whatever they want. So, thank you very much.